Hi everyone, we're just waiting for our guests to join and we'll get started. Awesome.
Hi.
Hi. Hi everyone, my name is Karina. I am the founder of Common Assembly. I'm so happy we're doing this. Usually every month we have Common Hour in our offices. It's just a time that we invite women in and we talk about all things real common. Because we're practicing social distancing, we're doing this virtually, and we've invited an expert, licensed professional therapist, or licensed professional counselor, Manisha Mayani, to join us. Thank you for being here, Manisha.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today and to just share things that have been helpful for me during this time. As we all know, it is uncharted water for a lot of us. There's a lot of uncertainty. We're hearing a lot about self-care. We're hearing a lot about physical health. And so I'm just really grateful to be here today for this time to share the knowledge I have and just to kind of hear where everyone is and if there's any way that I can be helpful during this time.
Yeah, everybody who's watching, this time we really wanted to talk with Manisha about how we really navigate our new norm. We're all working differently, we're all experiencing different things in our lives. We're having to learn how to be around our spouses 24/7. It's just a lot of change, and it's really going to be great to hear from you, Manisha, on how we can really honor ourselves through this process, how we can navigate more effectively and efficiently and build stronger relationships through the uncertainty.
Yes, I hear you. And when I hear that, the first thing that comes up for me is when we're taking care of ourselves the best that we can, that is going to influence our work, that's going to influence the relationship we have with our loved ones. And so maybe we can start with self-care. I know that's a really big buzzword right now. When you hear that, Karina, what comes up for you as what is self-care?
I think for me, self care is time. I really value time by myself, to journal, to meditate. Baths are great for me for self care. Eating chocolate is great for me for self care. But I think the most thing I value is just my time to do what I need, I guess, to ground myself.
hmm Yeah, and so it's interesting, right? There are different things that you listed, and that is important to note because every day our self-care may be different. And when we pressure ourselves to say, like, self-care needs to look this way all the time, and for some reason it doesn't look like that that day, we don't want to make ourselves feel more anxious or feel, worse about not being able to fulfill maybe something that we said we would. So it's important that we're flexible with ourselves during this time. It's important that we're gentle with ourselves at this time. And it's important that we make our self care realistic for what our life looks like now. So I can give an example for myself. One of the first things that I do in the morning is I take my dog out for a walk, right? That is something that has always stayed consistent for me. Now it looks a little bit different because I want to make sure that I'm supporting and grounding myself as much as I can. So now I am starting my morning with the walk with making sure I'm taking a deep breath in, inhaling and exhaling and being more intentional with my breath because when we look at what's happening right now in our world, in our community, there's a lot of uncertainty. And with that, our central nervous system is more heightened than normal. And so when we intentionally breathe, we can really help our bodies physiologically come to a more relaxed level. So if we can remember to incorporate breathing in that way, in whatever way is realistic for us, right? Not everybody has a dog that they walk, right? Maybe it's while you're making food for the kids in the morning, just making sure that you're taking a deep breath in and out. That can really help us in feeling more grounded during the day. Um,
And
has
just to
that been
touch on
something?
that, touch on what you mentioned about the central nervous system being heightened. for to explain it differently to people, that's essentially saying right now we're in fight or flight mode. We're feeling somewhat of like survival tendencies. And is that correct? And that's just a way for us to just come back to the present moment and calm ourselves through that.
Yes, exactly. So when our central nervous system is heightened, we get to this part of our brain where we're in the fight or flight mode, right? So what that means is we are just pushed through it, right? That's the fight. I just need to push through it. I need to get through it, or I'm going to withdraw, right? That's the flight. And so if we can remind ourselves to, yes, the uncertainty is true. We're not denying that, but at the same time, we are reminding our bodies that we can be more relaxed. And when we take those deep breaths in and out, we're providing more oxygen to our brains, to our bodies, and that naturally helps us to feel more calm and relaxed.
That's a really good point. A lot of what's out there, and I think what a lot of people are seeing, a lot of people are getting bombarded with things in the news and in social media. And one of the things that are out there, or what people are talking about, is like maintaining structure and working out and using this time to be in the best fitness position you can be. I personally have had difficulty getting my mind around that, or when I try to put myself in a structure like that, my emotions don't let that live past like 2 days. I feel
Mhm.
I'm not vibing with that. What do you think about what's going on in that realm?
Yeah, I'm so happy that you brought that up because while some sort of routine is important for us to feel like there's something that we can count on every day that's going to happen, which it can also help us to feel more calm. It's important to uh, not put the bar up so high. We're going to be in the best shape as we're ever going to be. We're going to have the cleanest house that we've ever had. Like, it's important to really, again, make that realistic for where we are now. So, yes, moving our bodies, it's so important right now because moving our bodies allows us to be in the present moment. It allows us to be out of our heads as much and be more in our bodies. So maybe one day moving your body is blasting your favorite song in your living room and, like just dancing like no one's watching with your kids, with your partner. And maybe the next day it's going out for a walk, right? Maybe the other day is you feel like you can run and you run a little bit more. Maybe it's jumping on a trampoline, whatever it is. The most important thing is that you put in your routine that you're going to move your body. But the way that that looks like, we have to have more expansion and flexibility for ourselves. So we don't feel that restriction. We want to feel the freedom. Does that
Yeah.
resonate?
Yeah, that really resonates. And I think that's like the natural flow I've been getting to. And there's been also a level of guilt. And I've heard other people saying this too of we just got to keep going. Like we got to keep up the pace. We got to work. We got to do this. And I feel like the energy of now or what's going on now is telling us to be still, be calm, wait it out. But wait, the way that we've all grown up to be is that go 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 structure. So that really does clarify a different way of thinking about that.
Yeah, and the when I hear you say that, I think for all of us in some shape or form, guilt is kind of in the background, whether it's not working enough, not working out enough, not eating healthy enough, not being as productive. There, we all kind of have some of that in our lives, and
Right.
so something that one of my mentors, Robert Holden, shared with me is the other side of we can feel guilt and we can't feel gratitude at the same time. They might be close, like we might feel gratitude and very quickly guilt can come in, but they usually cannot exist at the same time. So during this time, if we can practice gratitude a little bit more than normal and have a daily practice of what am I grateful for today? Because there's a lot of things that we can focus on that are not going great, but there's also a lot of small things that we can also focus on that are going well. And so when we do that, we strengthen that part of our brain, we strengthen that practice. And so it can be more of a presence in our life. So just acknowledging that we all can feel guilt sometimes, that is okay. That is not bad. There's no point in shaming that.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, can we shine light on the things that we're grateful for?
Yeah. Yeah. I resonate with that. Um, and what do you think about, or how do we navigate now? We've talked a little bit about the self-love aspect of it and taking care of us without feeling guilty. How do we navigate relationships changing through this and being working from home with your spouse, managing stressors with your spouse, things like that?
So, the first thing that I would ask us to pay attention to is, are we fully aware of what our needs are during this time? And a lot of times we can feel, especially when this first started, and even now, we can feel really chaotic in the noise and not really pin down, like, okay, what is it that I'm needing? And so, what I would invite everyone to do right now is to tap into that a little bit more. So, maybe we can try that now, Karina. So, if you
Okay.
can just close your eyes. What helps me is if we can put our hands over our heart. For me, my needs usually live here in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just close our eyes, take a deep breath in, and exhale. Take another deep breath in and exhale. And Karina, if you can ask yourself, what is it that I am needing right now?
I think what naturally comes up for me through this exercise is patience and compassion is what I need for myself right now.
Okay, so gentleness, right? Being able to pause and be more, again, just gentle with yourself. And so when those things come up for us, it's important to see, are we giving that to ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are we being gentle with ourselves? Are we being patient with ourselves? And whatever that looks like, allow it to look like that. And then when we have conversations with our partner, now that we have more of understanding of what we need, share it by saying, you know, I've been reflective and I realized that I really need compassion and patience right now. How can we have a discussion so you can provide that? And what can I provide to you? So the whole basis of this is when we're able to connect with our needs, right? By
Mm-hmm.
taking care of ourselves and giving ourselves that time, we are naturally going to be more effective in communicating those needs to our partners, to our loved ones. When we're feeling that chaos, it can come from having all this noise and not really focusing on what it is that we need. And then when we come from that place to our partners, it's hard for them to follow that. It's like, okay, wait, first you said this, then you said this, like,
Yeah.
and and they're trying to figure out what that is. But the important thing to remember about us is we are the expert in our life.
Yeah.
No one else is going to be able to tell us what we need better than we will when we take the time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I really invite everyone to do is check in with yourself every day, right? Whenever you have the chance to do that, whenever you're taking those breaths, and then when you're able to see your partner in the day, maybe you both can share with each other, like, you know what, today I'm feeling a little bit just more down. I need a little bit more time. Usually, when we can tell our partner, like, this is where it's coming from, there's more of a sense of ease of, oh, okay, that's what's happening to him, or that's what's happening to her,
Mm-hmm.
instead of trying to figure out what's going on with our partners.
Right. And I think without the clarification or the time to reflect, as both partners or loved ones or whoever you are closest to, everybody is experiencing this in their own way. So the waters could get muddy in communicating if you're not taking that time to reflect and understand truly where you're at in your own process.
Yes, and another thing that might be helpful is because this is uncharted water for us, we might have not sat down and talked to our partners about how are you under times of uncertainty? How are you under times of stress, right? There's some of us that want to stick close to our partners when we're feeling that way and we want to see them more and we want to have that reassurance. There's other of us that, maybe need a little bit more space to process what's going on. Maybe we like to work with our headphones on. But if we don't have that conversation, then that's when it can get a little messy, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
then we start to look at like, do you not care about me? Do you not love me? What's going on? But the truth is,
Right.
we all are doing the best that we can in trying to navigate that. So I would
Right.
encourage everyone, if you haven't already, to talk to your partners and say, how do you deal with stress? And once we have that awareness, usually things tend to shift a little bit.
Yeah. And I think also there's another layer of this topic, I guess uncertainty and control. I guess they go hand in hand, but we're so used to being able to control things. We're so used to being able to run into stores to get what we need, run in and out of the grocery store at our leisure, go wherever we need to go, eat whatever we need to eat. Like these are the smallest things that we are used to controlling, not to mention now physical safety or finances. These things add another layer of things that we cannot control. Is there any other tips that you have on from that aspect of the need to control your circumstance?
Yeah, so when we are in that state of fight or flight, right? That higher sense of, that heightened sense of our central nervous system, we really want to buckle down and control something, right? Like the control is the comfort. That's what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So when we see the motivation behind the control, which is comfort, which is assuring ourselves, I would really encourage everyone to look at what can I do to comfort myself in that time. And so something that's been helpful for me is um, knowing that I can experience more than one emotion at a time. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, Karina, but there can be times where I feel really uncertain about the future, but then there's a part of me that also feels a sense of that things are going to be okay. And if I
Mm-hmm.
can acknowledge both of those things happening at the same time, I can widen the perspective of my experience in that moment. Or I'm feeling really frustrated right now. I don't see an end in sight. And I experienced a moment of joy today
Mm-hmm.
when I was dancing in my kitchen to my favorite Mariah Carey song or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if we can look at that, if we can see that it doesn't always have to be so narrow of a perspective. And the important thing is that you're not dismissing what you're feeling. You're saying that that is a part of your experience right now, but then you're also adding this other part of your experience too. And when we can feel that sense of comfort, usually that heightened sense of I need to control isn't as in the forefront of our mind or
I
in
think
our
that's,
hearts.
yeah. As you're saying this, I'm resonating with this because I do feel this a lot. There's that uncertainty of, oh, what is the news saying today? Or like, oh, I choose not to watch the news. And then there's the moments of joy I have when I go into the park and I'm just surrounded by beautiful trees and I can hold on to that. But enjoying that joy makes me recognize that this other feeling of uncertainty is not, it may not be permanent. It like dismisses the value or the heaviness of it, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. Like it kind of eases the heaviness of it, right? It's
Yeah.
like we're able to see something different. It's like, oh, we're able to, it's like we're walking in this tunnel and there's no trees. And I look to the side, it's like, oh my God, I see a tree. And it
Yeah.
feels like I can take a deep breath. So that's exactly what I'm saying here is recognize that one, emotions are not permanent, right? Think about how many emotions we experience in a day.
Mm-hmm.
and that we can experience more than one
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that day.
Mm-hmm. And a trick that I've learned is using the verbiage, I am feeling X, not I am X. I'll be cautious not to identify me with that emotion. I'm identifying my experience with that emotion. That also is helping me not believe its permanence as much again.
Hmm. Yeah. And we can also do that with thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Because some of
Mm-hmm.
us are more in tune with our thoughts, some of us are more in tune with our emotions and feelings, and then some of us are more in tune with our bodies. So if we look at this, everything is connected, right? So if we're feeling a sense of fear, some of us might be more in tune to feeling it in our chest. The other one might be feeling like, oh, I know that I'm feeling fear in my heart. And someone else might say, I'm having this thought of, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? You know? And so, whatever it is that you experience is allowing, saying, I'm experiencing this thought, I'm experiencing this feeling, I'm experiencing this in my body. And
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't dismiss it, but it kind of allows you to see, like you said, like a broader perspective of your experience.
Yeah. Um, that's awesome. Something that's coming up in my mind is that we've spoken about spouses, but we haven't, I've been speaking to a lot of mothers out there that are feeling um, the need to juggle their work and then now needing to teach their kids at home and just like the overwhelmingness they're feeling on how to manage a new task that they're, a lot of them are teachers. That's not what their career path has been. And so what is your thoughts on that? Do you have any advice or tips for moms that are kind of experiencing higher senses of uncertainty right now?
Yes. So, again, such a different pace that a lot of parents are taking. And it's like, can they acknowledge that this is challenging? This is hard, right? So the fight or flight, pushing through it or withdrawing from it, but can you be more in the middle of saying, this is hard, this is really difficult,
Mm-hmm.
and acknowledging that we are all doing the best that we can with what we know. Really acknowledging that you are doing the best that you can. Be your own cheerleader. And then also remember that perfection isn't the focus right now. None of us right now can, even try to strive for perfection because it's like, well, what is perfect right now? There's so many moving parts.
Mm-hmm.
But if we continue to remind ourselves that however long down the line, when kids look back at this time, are they going to remember if they had a perfect lesson that day? Are they going to remember if, they got all the time that they were supposed to in math? Most of what they are going to remember is feeling loved, is feeling secure, is feeling joy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if we can love them and if we can love ourselves through this, that is what's going to lead more of an impact on our lives, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
that is what helps us to feel more grounded. And think about it, with yourself. You can have a day where you worked out for the amount of time that you wanted to work out. Did all the things that you said that you did. But at the end of the day, maybe you'll feel a sense of some sort of accomplishment, but are you feeling fulfilled and loved, right? Are you feeling that? And that's what I would really ask parents to look at. Are you
Yeah.
doing that for yourself? And that's what your kids are going to remember.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. That's a very good perspective. So another thing on my mind that I wanted to ask you is, you know, we've talked about everything on how to deal with our emotions and how to navigate and how to be more aware of how we're feeling in this time. How do we have more fun? How do we have fun with our spouses at home? What are some ideas out there that we could use to, I guess, make things less monotonous in our daily life at home?
That's a great question. So, one thing that can be really helpful for us in this time, and I know I'm experiencing this in my marriage while we both are working from home and navigating that, is first the night before, if we can give each other kind of like a check-in of what the next day is going to look like. Because I don't know about everyone else, but for me, and for my husband, depending on when meetings or sessions are, things look different every day. So if we can together say like, oh, okay, from 2 to 2:30 I'm free, and from 4 to 4:30 I'm free. If we can be more intentional with that time, right? And kind of instead of being two ships that are passing by the night and it's like, oh yeah, not really being intentional with each other, that's what's going to help us to be more focused in on one another, right? It's like when we both go to different jobs and then we come home, it's like we know that this time is what we have focus for one another. And we know that normal, we've figured it out. And so it's kind of doing the same thing where it looks a little bit different. So maybe it's, hey, from 2 to 2:30, let's have a coffee break together. And one idea could be dance it off after we have coffee, like
Yeah.
that could be, I know I keep going to dancing, but dancing brings a lot of joy for me, and maybe everyone else has something different.
Yeah.
It can just be being silly together, it can be saying one thing that you appreciate about one another and really grounding in that appreciation that you have for one another. So really being intentional with this, small pockets of time that you have. And the other thing is, and this definitely depends on where you are, like if you have kids, if you don't have kids, but there's a way to still do date night, however, whatever that looks for you, if it's once every 3 weeks or once every week, where you can be creative with that, right? Like maybe it's a nice evening and you take a blanket outside and you have a glass of wine together and ask each other random questions. Maybe you just put the kids to bed and you're too tired to do that, but you go to bed and you guys stay up 10 minutes longer and you play, the topic questions or whatever that game is called or something. And so it's like the most important thing is making it realistic for where you are, where your life is, and then kind of taking it from there and knowing that experiencing the joy that we can still experience at this time is going to be so grounding for us. It's going to help us to really remember everything else outside of what's going on right now, because it's so easy right now to really focus in on the news, which is important, right? But it's like, again, can we widen our perspective to see everything else that's out there? Everything else that still exists in our relationships, everything else that exists in the joy of our kids. Does
Yeah.
that give you a sense of how to navigate that a little bit more?
For sure. I think, everything we have been talking about has come back to some level of honoring yourself. Start, reflecting, doing what you need, and then putting in the effort to make things come to life in the world around you, whether it's putting in the effort to notice that there are still good things around you, putting in the effort to adjust your thoughts to be able to reflect on the good things around you, and putting in the effort to have conversations with your loved ones around you. Because I think also it's there's a level of vulnerability that we can also touch on it if you haven't had conversations with people you live with, your loved ones or your spouses, about your needs. That could also feel vulnerable and feel new.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is the best time for people to try that, because I think everyone is feeling a sense of vulnerability. Is there something you want to touch on with that topic?
So Brene Brown is great if you guys have not heard of her around vulnerability and the courage to be vulnerable. And what I would say to that is vulnerability is so important in our lives, especially in our relationship with ourselves, right? Because even tuning into what do I need and then like saying that you have needs is a sense of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And then in our relationship. So what I would say is if you can start with vulnerability with yourself, and if you can really tune into that, that is what's going to lead you to have more of the courage to do that with others. Because if
Mm-hmm.
we start from, okay, let me be vulnerable with my husband, but I don't have a sense of what that is for me, it just feels a lot heavier. It's
Yeah.
like this emotional nakedness, right? That
Yeah.
I'm choosing to
Yeah.
do first with my partner instead of first with me.
Right.
Um, so having that sacred space and whatever that looks like, and sacred space doesn't need to be like, I'm going to go into a room and I'm going to turn on some candles, I'm going to turn down the lights. That might not be what a sacred space is for you.
Mm-hmm.
It might be the kids are in the background watching their show, and I have 5 minutes to sit down and I'm going to do this now. But if you can really look at that, you brought up relationships and kind of being vulnerable. The other thing that I think is important for us at this time is social distancing does not mean social isolation.
Mm-hmm.
So, how are we using this amazing technology that we have to stay connected with those that we love, to allow others to support us, right? Like having those video conversations and doing those things, because at a base level, we want to feel connected. And if we
Mm-hmm.
get into the space that we feel isolated and we don't reach out and we see everything that we have to reach out, then we can just get really lost in the isolation.
Yeah. Um, One thing that's on my mind, going also back into the vulnerability conversation, when I learned how to be honest with myself, it was not easy. I think what we are all used to doing is feeling some sort of emotion, feeling the uncomfortable, a comfortable emotion, and then being like, oh, let me go cook, let me do this, and we mask our need to listen to ourselves with certain tasks. I think that this scenario that we are all in right now is giving everybody time to be still. And is there a tip that you could offer people out there on how to learn to listen to what your needs are? For me, it was journaling. I started on one topic. God knows what it is right now, but it led me to this level of awareness of insecurities I had around certain things in my life. And sometimes, at least in my experience, emotions were tied to something superficial, but as I dug deeper, I recognized so much more. And that has helped me understand what my needs are. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So journaling can be a great way to be more reflective on what's really going on with me. What is it that I'm experiencing? What's underneath all of this? Um, because it's true, we typically don't take the time to pause and really be curious about what is going on with us. And journaling is a great way to do that. When we look at our needs, it is closely related to um, a value that we have. And so this is something that I learned through, if I don't know if any of you guys have heard of nonviolent communication,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's like when we're looking at this, whether it's journaling or for me, it's like the breathing and placing my hand on my heart, like the placing my hand on my heart really helps me to connect, make me like have that connection with me, and taking a deep breath in and saying, okay, what am I feeling? I'm feeling really frustrated. Okay, why am I feeling really frustrated? And what's the value under it? So if we can really look at what our needs are, how they're connected to the values that we have, like nonviolent communication has taught us, that can help us get, like you said, underneath the things
Mm-hmm.
that is happening. Some people are more, in more physical. So taking a walk outside, putting some music that helps them to feel calm is more reflective, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whatever that is, it's like find the thing that works for you, find the thing that's realistic for you. And then experiment with it, be curious with it. Another thing that one of my mentors, Robert Holden, shared with me is, our emotions and our experience, whether it's our thoughts or what we're feeling in our body, it just wants to be heard. Just like when we talk to someone, we just want to be heard. So, whatever space that we can give that to be heard is what's going to allow us to dive deeper into it, right? When we, and the other thing I wanted to share is you were talking about diving into it a little bit and saying, I'm going to go cook or I'm going to do this. That's okay. As long as we come back to it. So there's a difference, in my opinion, between, okay, I'm diving into this. I need to comfort myself. I need a little bit of a breather, but
Right.
I am going to come back to this because I'm acknowledging myself in
Right.
this, right? And
Right.
so looking at that, some of us may take a lot of breaks, some of us may not. Whatever it is, it all comes down to what really works for you, what really feels good. And that might be different day by day.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I want to point out, Manisha, can you talk a little bit about your center for connection is here over your heart. My center for connection sometimes is over my heart, but most often it's over my belly button. So everybody has a different center that they feel most connected with. Can you talk a little bit about how people can find out what it works best for them?
Yes. So experimentation for me has been what works for me. Um, Also, noticing like where is it that you tend to experience things. So maybe for you, Karina, when you're experiencing joy, when you're experiencing fear, it's around your belly button, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you can pay attention to when things that are really exciting for me happen, what's happening to me? When things feel really scary, what's happening to me? It's like, where can we find our center of connection? For some people, if they feel really in tune with their thoughts, maybe it's up here. I'm going to take a deep breath. Doesn't matter what it looks like. This is
Mm-hmm.
me connecting to myself, and I feel really connected when I'm here, right? And
Yeah.
so, whatever it is, the important part is you are acknowledging yourself in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're not putting your hands on your heart, your head, your belly, but maybe you're just in a stance where you're crossing your legs, you're putting your hands up, and this is what feels connected.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And I oftentimes feel sometimes it's when I feel elated, my emotion in my body feels a little different than when I feel heavier emotions. So people who are watching, just like Manisha said, see how you feel, see how you feel your emotions move through your body, and that could give you an insight on where you hold yourself and where that might feel the best for you.
And you may not always know that emotion. You may have a thought, right? Like, so it's important also to note that we're all connected to different parts of our experience.
Mm-hmm.
And if you notice that thoughts come up for you, then connect to those thoughts, right? If it's an emotion, it's an emotion. But it all is connected. A thought leads to an emotion, which leads to a body cue, and who knows exactly where it starts and where it ends. But what we know to be true is that it's all a part of our experience. And if we can hear ourselves, if we can be aware and acknowledge of what's happening with us, that gives us a sense of ease. Like, okay, like
Yeah.
I'm here for me, and I don't have to be perfect. It can be messy sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Honoring ourselves is has been for myself, learning to honor myself and listen to myself has been a journey. But the more I do it, the more I feel free, the more I feel accepted by me, the more I show up more confidently, the more I feel like situations that I can't control are okay. So,
That's beautiful. And like there's like this, I mean, hearing you say that for me, like there's this sense of expansion in that,
yeah.
right? Like the sense of yes, all of this is happening. I may not be able to control this, but I know that I'm here for me. I know that I'm acknowledging me. Um, when we don't take the time to do that, um, it really can hurt, right? It can really hurt and feel like the sense of who's listening to me and who's here for me, and feel really lonely, right?
Yeah,
And so when we can do that with ourselves, again, bringing it back to the relationships, um, our communication is just different. Our relationships become different because we're coming from a place of I know me. I know what I'm feeling in this moment because, again, things change, right, all the time.
right.
And I can have a sense of, like you said, like this sense of strength in that, like this awareness, and I can share that with my partner.
Yeah, yeah. I think you had said this. When we don't do that, we have this level of feeling lonely or um, disconnected from people. And I think then often we get to the place of somebody did something to me or I'm feeling a certain way because of somebody else and not recognizing that we're not honoring ourselves first, which is the first step for um, true alignment to happen for us around us.
Yeah, emotional honesty, right? Like being really honest about what's going on first. And then maybe there's some remnants of like, I'm still upset at this person. But when we have that conversation with them, because it's important that we have a voice in our relationship, the
Mm-hmm.
conversation typically goes very differently.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Manisha, is there anything else? Can you sum up for us today some of the tips you had and anything else you want to share with everybody who's watching right now?
Yes, I do. So the most important thing is if we can take care of ourselves during this uncertain time in a place that is realistic for us, in a place that we're really bringing our system as, you know, as grounded as possible through breathing. If we can remind ourselves that we are doing the best that we can, everyone around us is doing the best that we can, really bring joy, even if it's sprinkled, and be really grateful for what it is that we do have. And at the same time, acknowledging that sometimes we might just feel low that day, and that's
Yeah,
okay. Allowing yourself to feel that and be with that with you. Um, Being intentional with the time with our partners. I can go on and on and on, but if we can just really be there for ourselves, that always tends to, impact all other parts of our life.
I love
Um,
one thing you said earlier. In this environment, there's no room for perfection. Nobody's being perfect.
yes.
Businesses are working remotely. We're all juggling new things in our lives, um, and it's okay not to be perfect. It's perfectly okay not to be perfect right now.
Yes. And it also gives us a sense of ease when we don't put this pressure on ourselves, when we already are feeling not like we typically feel, right?
Right.
Like there's so
Yeah.
much that's going on that we're learning to navigate. And so being gentle with ourselves is really important right now. Being
Yeah.
gentle with how we're schooling our kids, if we have kids, how we are learning how to be with our partners and sharing workspaces.
Yeah.
So many different things. And then knowing that along with everything that we're hearing around our physical health, which is really important about, maintaining distance, washing our hands, there's also this emotional component of our emotional health. So I wanted everyone out there to know that there is mental health professionals out there in your area that you can contact if you are needing extra support at this time, who are working remotely, who are doing video sessions that you can find if you're needing that extra help and allowing yourself to do so if that's what's happening for you.
Yeah, and Manisha is located in Houston. So if anybody in the Houston area wants to reach out to her, her Instagram handle is out at Counseling with Manisha. That's also the name of her business. So She is here in the Houston area for anybody that would like to speak to her further. Manisha, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you
This is our
so much for
first,
having me.
of course, this was our first virtual common hour, and it was so much fun. It was so much fun to do this with you. Um, we haven't, a lot of encouragement has been coming through via the comments. No questions have come up. If anybody has any follow-up questions, you can DM Common Assembly and we will put you in touch with Manisha ourselves. Manisha is my family, so I have direct contact to her if anybody needs any support. Um, just to sum up what we did today, this was our first virtual common hour with Common Assembly and at Counseling with Manisha. You guys know that Common Assembly is a kind fashion brand, and we're trying to spread kindness, love, and light through everything that we do. We hope that you really enjoyed our time with Manisha. Just wanted to send you guys off with a kindness tip. Right now, we're practicing social distancing, so we can't hug a stranger. We can't go to Starbucks and buy coffee for a stranger. However, we can leave thank you notes on our doors for our delivery men and women. We can leave them chocolate chip cookies, a little bit of water. You can do the same for your neighbors. You can still connect. You can still spread kindness, especially at this time. We need to connect even more than we have before. Love everybody. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.